Hi, I'm Steve Jackson from Imprintables Warehouse, and I want to thank you for taking a minute out for this week's training timeout. Working with media profiles doesn't have to be a hassle. Do you have a profile that you tweak every single time, change a couple settings on it, or maybe want to rename it so that it's easier to find? In this week's training timeout, I'm going to show you the process of working with media profiles, how to duplicate a profile, change settings, rename it, and then save it so that it's easier to find for you to work with. Let's take a look in the Media Explorer in Roland Versaworks and show you how it's all done. So here we are in Versaworks, and I've got the Family Fan Club logo that I used last time in one of my previous videos for the print cut accuracy. And when I go into the settings of that, I'm going to take a look at the profile and tell it what media I'm printing on and what I'm doing. So we can go over to our settings button right here and click on that, and I'll drag that over dual monitor system, so I'm bringing it over from the other screen. And here's our job, and you can see under the quality I've got glossy calendared vinyl right here under media type. Now I can use the drop down and pick any different type of media that I want that I've got a profile for. These are all the Roland profiles for their medias. And then down at the bottom you see I've got Quick Print, which is one from Imprintables Warehouse, and I'll show you in a minute how to add those profiles in and how to work with the profiles. So on this one we use glossy calendared vinyl, but say I'm printing onto Roland 4560 GTX, a great decal vinyl with a air release liner in it, but I know that the glossy calendared vinyl profile doesn't do real well for it, and the manufacturer at this time doesn't have a profile for the VS300. So I know I can play around with the glossy calendared vinyl, and maybe I'm going to do standard, and I'll change it down to unidirectional so that it gives that ink a little bit more time to get its full dot gain before it's getting a little bit more ink on it, so I don't get fuzzy edges or anything like that. I can even change the default settings for the head speed and slow it down. Maybe I want to do it 400. I can change some of the printer controls. I can do a lot of things right in the settings here. I can change my heater settings. Maybe I want to go give it a different temperature, or maybe I'm going to go to my custom settings here under other controls, change the vacuum power or dry time or anything like that. So I could go through and set all these up every single time, but maybe I want to create a default for this, kind of a profile of my own, adjusting some of these settings, and then rename it for what I want. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we'll hit cancel here, and then I can go up to the top here where it says media, and I'm going to go to the Media Explorer. And it opens up my Media Explorer here. I've got all the different medias that are loaded into the system. I can scroll down to the bottom of this, and I can see that Quick Print. You can see it's a little different icon. That means it's from a different vendor other than Roland. And they've got these kind of eyeball icons next to each other, and next to each one of them. So say on the generic vinyl one right there, I don't use it, I can click on those, and that will get rid of that profile when I go back into the system. It's still in the software, it's still on your computer, it's just not going to be visible when I go and do the drop down menu for the media type that I'm going to be printing onto. So I'll hit OK on this to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. Hit yes there, and then we'll double click on our job and bring up the settings again. Bring that over, and now when I do the drop down menu and go to the top of it, you'll see that all those other generic vinyls that I got rid of there are gone. There used to be a whole bunch of them right there, and now there's much less. So hit OK and go back to the Media Explorer, and you can see that some of those that I'd hit on there, there's just the few generic vinyls that I had left. It didn't have this entire list there showing. So if there's some that you hardly ever use or never use at all, you can turn them off in here, and that way you won't be crowded up with a whole bunch of profiles when you're going to choose from that list. So you can see them all in there. Now, on the example that we were talking about, we were using glossy calendared vinyl. So I'll go down to my glossy calendared vinyl, GCVP right here, and I want to change some things and rename this, create a copy and rename it so it's something easier for me to find and work with. So what I'll do is I've got it selected there, and then up at the top I can go to this icon here that says Copy Media. So I'll copy the media, and I'll give it a different name. Now like I said, I'm going to be using this on Roland 4560 GTX. I'll hit OK with that, and it'll add that profile down to the bottom. Now right now it's still using the glossy calendared vinyl. I can see the template that it was used for. It's a user defined, means that we created it, and has the date and information on it. I can see over here the different print qualities that are in this profile: high quality, standard, and high speed. And I can go in and let's double click on this here, and we're going to go into the settings of this. So now I can see under the printer controls for this, I can change how many times it overprints. So if I was working with a translucent media and I wanted to have it print 2 or 3 times onto the media to give it more opacity with the inks, I could change that. I can change my feed calibration. On the other controls, I can change the vacuum power, dry time. Say this is a hard to dry media. Maybe I want to set it to 5 minutes that it's going to dry out there before it comes back and cuts. So we can change that right in here without having to go into all the submenus on the settings there. I can also change the heater controls if I determine that I need more heat on it. Again, in my cut controls, let's click on that there, and it enables cutting, or I can disable cutting if it's a media that I don't want to cut on. Say I'm working with a banner media, I don't want to use a cut profile for that and accidentally try to cut it and cause damage to the cutting head. So I've got it enabled cutting and all the standard settings there. So we'll hit OK with this. Let's actually go back to printer controls and double check. Strong's fine. We'll make it a longer dry time so you guys can see that it really shows up in there. So we've changed the dry time. We'll hit OK on this. And then I can go into each one of the print qualities and change the settings there. So I can click on that, and then I can go over to this icon here, the print quality settings. We'll go to standard. And here I can see where I've got my controls for halftone. Interpolation's grayed out on this profile. It doesn't allow me to preset an interpolation on it, but I can change it to a unidirectional if I know that this media needs to go in a unidirectional to work with. And I can change the head speed here, which is a great way to troubleshoot stuff. If I'm using glossy calendared vinyl profile for something and I'm just getting too much dot gain, maybe I'll slow down the head speed or go to bidirectional and allow the dot gain to finish out before it adds more ink to it, and it'll have a crisper edge for me. So on this one, we'll say I'm just going to change it, leave it at bidirectional, and change it down to 400 in this one. So that's pretty slow for that one. And all the rest of these here, the calibration, total ink limit, and profile settings, that's for working with when we're creating a custom profile, we're doing linearization, or work with a spectrophotometer. So we're not going to mess around with those right now. So we'll hit OK on this. Maybe I'll go to my high quality one and take a look at that. And you can see already the head speed in this one is 340. It's set at bidirectional. So maybe on this one I'll change it to unidirectional, or say unidirectional only. I can force it that the user doesn't have a choice on this one if I was creating a profile to send to somebody else. So we'll change this one down to unidirectional, but allow it so that the user could go bidirectional if they want. So we'll hit OK on this one here, and hit OK for the whole Media Explorer portion. And it's going to ask us, do we want to save these settings? And it could affect some jobs that maybe I'd changed one of the profiles in here, and if that profile was applied to them, it would change the output of those. I'll hit yes and allow it to finish. And then we're going to go back to our job that we have in here. Again, I'll drag that over from the other screen. And we see the media type glossy calendar vinyl, but let's drop that down and we'll go down to that Arlon 4560 GTX that we created. And you'll see right away in standard, it's already set at 400, bidirectional, dither, everything's there. Let's go to our printer controls, and we can see that under default media settings, the dry time is at 5 minutes, and the vacuum power is at strong. So it created those with the default media settings where I can change the dry time. This is especially important for those people out there that are working with, say, Solutions Opaque, which needs a little bit more dry time. You can figure out what's optimal for your printer and in your environment if you've got a very humid or a very dry environment, and change that dry time in there before it comes back to go cut. So this is a great way to alter the profile yourself, save those settings so that you don't have to remember to change all these settings every time that you bring the job in. It's already done for you. And we can see up here, if I change that from standard, say, to high quality, we'll see the default head speed settings. It goes down to 340, and now it's unidirectional because we changed that in the profile. So here we've not really created a custom profile, but we've tweaked a profile that we've found out how to make it work for us, renamed it, applied those settings, and now every time I come into Versaworks, I can very easily pick that profile and not have to remember to change all my settings and maybe forget one and have the job run and have a ruined job at the end of it. So hopefully this has helped you all out, and if you have any questions, make sure to shoot me an email at steven@imprintables.com.
So it really wasn't that hard to make a profile that will produce the results that you're looking for on the media in your printer the way you want it. We've renamed it, we've done all the settings in there, and we've saved it so that you can easily find it every time that you're working with that media. I want to thank everybody for stopping by for this week's training timeout and remind you to subscribe to the YouTube channel Steven Jackson IW so that you can get updates on all future training timeouts. You can also subscribe to the Imprintables.com YouTube channel for all the wonderful videos and training that we have over there. Stop by thegarminedge.com to make sure that you keep up to date on all the blog articles, tips and tricks in the industry. And as always, check out Imprintables.com for any deals we have going on. Thanks again for taking a minute out for this week's Training Timeout.